Hey, I'm Garrett. This is Parklife, a Pace magazine video about theme parks. I made a little visual aid for you right there. Last week I was in Orlando, Florida. It is, as you might know, looking at the date on this video, mid-September, which means they've started up all of their Halloween business for the year, which Universal Studios Florida means Halloween Horror Nights, which they've been running every year since 1991. If you've been before, you know what to expect. It's a massive Halloween spectacle full of haunted houses and what they call scare zones, which are little areas you walk through throughout the park with people dressed like zombies or other monsters jumping out and yelling at you. This year is no exception. They had 10 haunted houses and 5 scare zones. The haunted houses, once again, it's a mix of intellectual property, mazes based on popular movies or TV shows, and then also a handful of original concepts created by the designers and creators at Universal. The big one this year that is sort of taking front center in all the advertising is for Us, Jordan Peele's movie Us. And I got to say, one thing that's surprising about the Us house is it's actually, I think, more effective at telling the story of the movie than the movie itself is. The movie, in my mind, if you've seen it the last 15, 20 minutes or so, it kind of takes a weird detour that the house is able to sort of explain more concisely and more satisfyingly than the movie itself. And it's also scary as heck. And if you've ever wanted to have a guy who looks not much like Tim Heidecker, but is supposed to look like Tim Heidecker, jump out at you covered in blood, this is, the best way for that to ever happen for you. Unless, I guess, you're friends of Tim Heidecker. Maybe you could talk him into doing that for you in real life. Also, beyond Us, they have a big Stranger Things house this year. This is the second year they've done Stranger Things at Halloween Horror Nights. Last year, they did the first season in what was a very memorable and well put together house. This year, they've combined seasons 2 and 3 into what they're calling an Uber house, which means it's about twice as long as a typical haunted house. They have, I think, 10 or 11 scenes in this one as opposed to the typical 5 or 6. I might be getting my numbers wrong. I don't have that written down in front of me or nothing. But the Stranger Things house, if you like that TV show, it's yet again, it's a cool walkthrough of the major plot points from the last 2 seasons. They add way more scares into it than the show itself has. You'll have demogorgons and mind flayers popping out of every corner at you. And they do a fantastic job of recreating what you see on the screen. They actually work really closely with Netflix. With the Us house, they actually worked hand in hand with Universal's film division in order to recreate these sets as faithfully as they possibly can, and then just pumping them full of probably underpaid local actors wearing masks yelling at you. The thing about Halloween Horror Nights that I've noticed after going to it for a few years now, I feel like the houses that the designers themselves come up with the concepts are actually way better on average than the ones based on movies. You can kind of tell that these designers are more passionate about those ones. They seem to be a little bit more complex in terms of their architecture, in terms of their design, a little bit more detailed. This year, probably the best of the original concepts is something called Nightingale's Blood Pit, which I guess this is the second time they've done Nightingales at Halloween Horror Nights. The concept is they're these monsters that are attracted to human blood and carnage, and so whenever there's a location full of that, they will appear and prey upon whoever's still alive. The first time they did it years ago, it was a trench during World War I. This year, you're walking beneath a gladiatorial arena in ancient Rome, where they haven't had rain in weeks or something like that, so the emperor decides to hold games every day to appease the gods until the rain finally comes, and it's been going on for months now, so there's just blood soaked into all the earth beneath the Colosseum, and these monsters show up and they just start eating everybody, and unfortunately, since it's a haunted house, you're one of the everybodies. They don't actually eat you, but they will jump out of behind doors and yell at you. That's kind of the common theme of these things. They just jump out of things and yell at you. They could easily call this Universal's jumping out of things and yelling at you if they wanted to. But yeah, Nightingale's Blood Pit, it's a really fantastically designed recreation of the underbelly of an old Roman Colosseum. They call it the Hypogeum, which is literally just the Latin word for underground, I believe, or below, or beneath or something like that. I took Latin in high school and I don't know that word. I just had to look that up while I was preparing my notes for this video right here. But Nightingales, yeah, it matches the best of the theme park design you'll see at Universal itself, like the Forbidden Continent part of Islands of Adventure or the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. When you're walking through that Nightingales haunted house, you'll feel like you're actually in this weird old bloody Roman gladiatorial arena. Also, one of the other original houses they have this year, it's called Yukon. No, wait, Yeti, Terror of the Yukon. It's about the Yeti, not the Yukon itself, but they're able to turn this studio in Orlando, where again, it was like 90 degrees when I was there, very humid, very hot, very sweaty. And they're able to turn it into this reasonable facsimile of the Yukon in the winter of like 1752 or something like that. Like it's freezing in this warehouse. They have fake snow falling everywhere, large snowbanks that you have to walk through, and a Yeti that pops out constantly yelling at you. He also mauls some fur trappers to death, but I mean, they're there to deplete the natural land of its resources and wildlife, so they probably deserve it anyway. I mean, that's, if anything, the Yeti's just protecting his turf, you know? There are, let's see, other houses there based on movies like Ghostbusters and Killer Clowns from Outer Space and House of a Thousand Corpses, which is, that last one is not a very good haunted house. It's pretty lazy. It's just blood and guts everywhere. The Ghostbusters one is a lot of fun if you're a fan of the movie, but it's not remotely scary. And it's a little weird to see, you know, fake Bill Murray and fake Rick Moranis and all of them pop up like that. And then they have the scare zones, which again, you just sort of randomly walk through those when you're going from one location to another within the park. Most of them are not that scary. Honestly, you can kind of walk through them and not even realize you're walking through them a lot of the time. But there's one called Vikings Undead, which has a pretty good concept about a group of Viking warriors who refuse to go to Valhalla after they've lost in battle and stay on Earth to torment the living. And it's actually some really good costume and character design that makes that one really stand out based from the other, at least compared to the other scare zones. And finally, they have a couple of shows that they do. One of them has become an annual tradition, the Academy of Villains dance show. If you're really into like dance crews, like Jason Mendoza from the Good Place style dance crews or something, that's kind of what they do. And they're very talented. It's not really the kind of thing I enjoy watching, but I gotta hand it to them. They really know how to move their bodies. This year's interesting. They have a couple of sideshow style performers, including one crazy contortionist guy who did stuff that is pretty much going to make you squirm when you watch it. And then one guy who did tricks with a basketball, who was just like the most like weirdly dramatic basketball trick guy I've ever seen. Like if you think the Harlem Globetrotters should be like super melodramatic, like goths in like high school theater class, you should probably go check this dude out. And the other show they have, it's called Marathon of Mayhem, and it's in that big lagoon they have at the middle of Universal Studios Florida, if you've ever been there. And it's a water show. They just have like huge walls of water, and they project images from some of the movies that they have houses based on, including the old classic Universal monsters and Killer Clowns. And it's maybe 10 minutes long. It's fine. It's technically impressive. Halloween Horror Nights. So that's running at Universal Studios Florida on select nights through November. I think the first week of November is when it wraps up. And that's it for this first edition of Parklife. Next, we'll have some more business going down about what Disney does for its Halloween parties. The Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, a much different vibe than what you get at Universal. Thanks.